5 creepy stories you won't believe people went through. Story 1. The face in the window. You know those nights where everything feels a little wrong? It was one of those nights. My best friend and I had just wrapped up a marathon of horror movies in his room on the second floor of his house. The air felt heavy, and for some reason, I had this nagging feeling that we were being watched. We were joking around and scrolling through our phones when my friend froze. His expression went from playful to pale in an instant. He was staring past me, his eyes locked on the window. I turned around slowly, and that's when I saw it. There was a face pressed against the glass. It wasn't just any face, it was ghastly pale, with sunken eyes and a twisted, almost mocking smile. And here's the thing, we were on the second floor. No ladder, no balcony, nothing that could explain how anyone could be outside that window. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just sat there, paralyzed with fear. Then the face pressed closer, the glass fogging up where it breathed. I swear, I could hear the faintest sound, like a low chuckle, coming from it. My friend snapped out of his trance and grabbed a baseball bat from the corner of the room. He ran to the window and yanked it open, yelling, "Who's there?" But when he looked out, there was no one, just the dark, quiet yard below. We spent the rest of the night huddled together with the lights on, too scared to even close our eyes. The next morning, we went outside to check for footprints or any sign of someone being there, but the ground beneath the window was untouched. To this day, my friend swears he still hears soft tapping on that window some nights, but he never dares to look, and honestly, I can't blame him. Story 2. The static voice. This happened a few years ago when I was house sitting for my aunt. She has one of those massive, old houses in the middle of nowhere, the kind that creaks even when there's no breeze. I thought it'd be fun, just me, a quiet weekend, and a ton of snacks. But by the second night, I regretted agreeing to it. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when the TV turned on by itself. The screen was just static, and that loud, hissing noise filled the room. At first, I laughed it off. Old house, old wiring, I thought. I grabbed the remote and turned it off. Not even 5 minutes later, the TV flickered back on. This time, I was annoyed. I walked over, unplugged the TV from the wall, and sat back down. But as soon as I did, I heard it. The static wasn't just noise anymore. There was a voice. It started faint, like someone whispering from the other side of a door. I leaned in closer, my heart pounding. Then I heard it clearly. It said my name. I froze. My skin prickled as it said my name again, this time louder, like it was coming from right behind me. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the house, not even stopping to grab my bag. I spent the night in my car, parked down the road, too terrified to go back. The next morning, I returned to get my things. The house was silent, the TV still unplugged. But the remote was lying in the middle of the living room floor, perfectly centered, as if someone had placed it there deliberately. I never told my aunt what happened, and I haven't been back to that house since. Story 3. The girl in the forest. A close friend of mine, let's call him Mike, told me this story, and he swears every word is true. Mike's one of those adventure junkies who loves camping alone in the middle of nowhere. He says it's peaceful, but after hearing this, I think he's nuts. He was camping in a forest a couple of hours from town, one of those places where you don't get cell service, and the trees block out most of the moonlight. The first night was uneventful, just the usual sounds of the forest. But on the second night, something woke him up. It was a soft humming, like someone singing a lullaby in the distance. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but the sound got louder, closer. He unzipped his tent and shone his flashlight outside. That's when he saw her. She was maybe 10 or 11, wearing a tattered white dress, her hair long and matted. She was barefoot, standing perfectly still just a few feet away. The humming stopped as soon as his light hit her, and she slowly turned her head to look at him. Mike said her eyes were the worst part. They were empty, almost like they were made of glass. He called out to her, asking if she was okay, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and started walking deeper into the woods. Against his better judgment, He grabbed his flashlight and followed her, calling out. But the further he went, the darker it got. The girl seemed to glide, never making a sound. Then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she was gone. Mike spent the rest of the night in his tent, shaking and clutching his pocket knife. When he told a park ranger the next day, the ranger got really quiet and said, "You're not the first person to see her. You're lucky you didn't follow her too far." Story 4, the closet door. When I was 12, I went through a phase where I was terrified of my closet. I didn't know why, nothing had ever happened to make me afraid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was in there, watching me. One night, I woke up to the sound of my closet door creaking. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but when I opened my eyes, the door was slowly swinging open. I stared at it, heart pounding, when I saw a shadow move inside. It wasn't just my imagination. I could see the outline of a figure standing in the darkness. I tried to convince myself it was a pile of clothes or something, but then I saw a hand, a pale, bony hand, reach out and grip the edge of the door. I screamed, and my mom came running in, turning on the light. The closet was empty. She told me it was just a bad dream, but I knew better. For weeks after that, no matter how tightly I shut the closet door, I'd wake up to find it open. One night, I even heard faint breathing coming from inside. Eventually, we moved, and the nightmares stopped. But even now, I can't sleep unless my closet door is securely closed. Story 5, the figure on the road. This one's from my uncle, and he's not the type to make things up. He was driving home late one night on a quiet country road, the kind where you don't see another car for miles. It was past midnight, and the only light came from his headlights. Out of nowhere, he saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. He slammed on the brakes and came to a stop just a few feet away. The figure didn't move. It was tall, with long limbs and a head that seemed off, like it was tilted at an unnatural angle. My uncle honked the horn, but the figure just stood there, staring. Suddenly, it vanished. One moment it was there, and the next, it was gone. He was about to start driving again, when something knocked on his window. He turned his head slowly, and there it was. Its face was inches away from his, pressed against the glass. Its skin was pale and stretched tightly over its bones, and its eyes, they were pitch black. My uncle floored it, speeding all the way home. For weeks after that, he refused to drive that road at night. To this day, he can't explain what he saw, but he says he'll never forget that face. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel.